Do you fear death? Do you fear that dark abyss, all your deeds laid bare, all your sins punished? One with the ship, one with the crew. The vampire coast is back like a butt crack, and they're fishes out of water, traipsing in the snow near the middle mountains. SFO Grimhammer today, facing down the Wargrove of Woe, led by Drycha and another malevolent spirit who lay dormant in the wildwood for many centuries, but has since awakened. And he's bringing with him the wrath of the forest, Coeddil the Ancient, once the brother of Durthu and Adonhu, now a soul lost to rage. And if he can be cut down, he should make good timber for the Bloody Reaver. To the gallows we go, with the double Necrofex play, Queen Mama Bess, and a horde of Morngulls and zombie pirates. But before we get into the replay itself, I need to mention that I have the most professionally produced video I have ever been a part of going live on my channel tomorrow. As part of the Units of Warhammer series I've been working on with Invicta, the Plague Drones of Nurgle full video will exclusively premiere on Milk and Cookies Total War. This one will not be on Invicta's channel, only mine. These take a lot of effort to put together from a bunch of different people, and I think it turned out super well, so I'd really appreciate it if all you guys show up to support it, watch it, comment on it, and be a part of it, because it should be a great primer to get you ready for the Armies of the Plague God coming soon in Warhammer 3. That'll be tomorrow at 4 p.m. GMT. But back to the replay, my favorite unit in the entire Vampire Coast roster, bar none, is the Gallows Giant, because a jerry-rigged Salvation Army Gundam made of flesh and rotten timber that shoots flames and impales people with gigantic fishhooks is just about the nastiest nautical creature from the Seven Seas. Finna do some pegging with that bad boy. Round out the build with 4 scurvy dogs as well. Here comes Drycha's Wargrove and the Wrath of their Eldest Ancients. Very fluffy and thematic army comp from the outcasts of the Wildwood. We've got spiders, manticores, great hawks, and malevolent dryads wielding bows, who can pick and choose which aspect they want to represent before battle, which allows them to specialize a bit more depending on which enemy they are fighting. Behind them are the Zoats Magoats, which, like river trolls, I have basically never made dedicated videos for, so I'll be looking to rectify that in the coming days. It's a really cool looking unit. At least in SFO, it seems their animations are bugged and never display the summon green orbs of life magic they're supposed to when they lift their hands. If someone wants to check that in their own game in vanilla, let me know and see if it's working for you, because it's not working for me. Finally, we have the Tree of the Hour, the great and terrible Coeddil, fresh from his nap and ready to slaughter some zombies. He is extremely good, hits like a Mack truck, can nuke single entities, has useful spells across the board, and is also a Mortis engine with Murder of Spite. So he can wade into the thick of the fighting, tank a bunch of damage, and dish out even more. Big, scary tree man, and definitely the most dangerous unit in Drycha's arsenal. So, the Dread Fleet is balancing a nice selection of chaff, guns, artillery, and a couple powerful single entity monsters, but the Queen Bess is at the core of this strategy. Functions differently in SFO, as many things tend to do. Essentially has a cluster shot effect where the first barrel makes impact, then releases dozens of secondary and tertiary waves of explosions, which are somewhat predictably quite devastating. Dryads will feel that in the morning, I think. Kind of a weird situation for Mama Bess though, because there's essentially no infantry of high value on this battlefield. It's all high tier chaff at best, so she can only really shoot at the Dryads. To be fair, malevolent Dryads will Wrathful stomp zombie pirates with their frenzy. They have good enough stats to buzzsaw their way through quite quickly, and on a shot to damage ratio, Queen Bess is better than any other artillery piece in the game at taking a unit from fighting effective down to utterly useless. I mean, she can one-shot stuff basically, as you're seeing here, but she'd ideally rather be shooting Glade Guard, Deepwood Scouts, War Dancers, any of those mid-tier units that might come out to play. She'll be supported by 3 ranks of Morngulls, which are unspottable in SFO, meaning they have an easier time outflanking and keeping themselves hidden from enemy missile play, so they might be quite useful here against this many Dryads. And here come the Great Hawks from the flank. Birds of Prey are on the hunt, and interestingly enough, you'll notice in this replay that zombie pirates now get dismembered. I imagine Venris or someone on the SFO team said, I don't understand why they're the only faction in the game that can't be dismembered. They're rotten zombies. Of course they're going to explode when they get ripped apart. That's how things work. Whether you're a swordmaster, whether you're a rotten corpse, it doesn't really matter. If you get blown up by artillery, you're going to be in pieces. So it's very strange They're the only faction in vanilla that does not have that issue where they get dismembered. Here, that has been fixed, so it'll be a pretty bloody battle, except for, you know, the Dryads. They're made of timber, but trees can be felled and exploded, and so far, Queen Bess has been making them pay for every inch of ground they cover. Already taken 2 units off the field. And in a normal 12,400 funds battle, if you're the Wood Elves here, you'd be kind of worried having 2 of your units already murdered, but we're playing on 17,000 funds with more units, 40 unit cap, and Dryads are cheap. So while Zach B. Sane's hardly thrilled with watching his units make explode, he's doing just fine so far. And in fact, he's already broken through the first wave or 2 of zombies. There's a Shadow Dancer hanging out with the zombies on the left flank, separating heads from necks, twerking on them, giving them the good what for, and she's in the vanguard of what will prove to be quite a ferocious assault from the forest on that side of the battlefield as the tree spirits try to overload the flank and begin collapsing on the pistols and artillery in the rear. They have no real way to burst down Noctilus and his Necrofex Colossus, and diving on him is kind of a bad idea with their low armor this early, with the fact that he can just summon more pistol zombies to defend himself and also pop some Invocation of Nahex, but they can tackle everything else and leave him isolated for last, and that's probably what they're going to try to do. Kill everything else besides the Gallows Giant and Noctilus, leave them isolated, and then kill them for the finale. But these pistols, as cheap as they are, and they're only 300 gold, and the summons are even cheaper, of course, are pretty terrifying for the Wood Elves to deal with in a lot of ways, actually, because even though they don't hit hard by themselves, they have a ton of models, so that DPS racks up quite quickly against low armor factions. Now, the Wargrove of Woe and Drycha's Briarmavens, or rather, just her Dryads in general, they can pick an aspect that gives them additional armor. I think it might be the Oak aspect that would help them a lot on that front, but the unit that's really good at killing them, these Malevolent Bow Dryads, is being focus fired down by the Queen Bess, and they have lost a lot of their number due to those artillery strikes, and so far, they've been unable to get into the rear. Now, there are some spiders pushing into the back line now, and I imagine they will try to get at that Queen Bess. Yeah, they're charging into the forest now, and they won't take any combat penalties while they're in there. So, big deal for sure. Coeddil's pushing forward in the center, and he's pretty much on top of the Necrofex Colossus at this point. Only has a few more zombies to kill, but a couple reserve Mournguls waiting on the wings. That's not a fight they want to take, but they might need to take it regardless. Coeddil is a world beater when it comes to bonus versus large and armor sundering, and he will mollywop those Mournguls, but they're just more bodies to throw into the pile to slow him down and keep those Necrofex Colossuses online and shooting from range for as long as physically possible. The Zotes are into melee. Zotes, my goats, my dude. Zotes, my goats. They are armor piercing. They lost their bonus versus large in SFO, but I'd say their role is still one that's good for killing single entity monsters and enemy cavalry. So a lot of their open strength will be wasted against zombies, of course, but with the Manscore backing them up, I mean, they're going to get through these zombies real quick and crumble city across the line for the Vampire Coast. The Dread Fleet has a pit of shades being dropped on their Queen Bess. So now a lot being invested and thrown towards that Queen Mama, but there's nothing really in close proximity to fully silence the artillery, and indeed it is still firing. Great Hawks wanted to go there, I think, but they'll have to retreat because Scurvy Dogs and Mournguls have made their way into the Wargrove of Woe backline and are starting to munch up some of those Dryads in the rear. And another Spectral Wraith Cannon, whatever, I don't even remember what the thing's called, I can never remember. Raining down on Coeddil from Noctilus, did not do very much damage. And the Gallows Giant also unleashing his Napalm, and I'm going to be curious to see what happens in a duel between them. Now, Coeddil should theoretically beat the brakes off of a Necrofex Colossus. None of them are truly dedicated as anti-large monster-killing monsters themselves, but the Gallows Giant has flaming fish hooks for hands. And that extra 22% damage in a duel cannot be forgotten about. It might be a problem for this tree spirit. We'll see if it even comes down to a duel between them. Right now, Drycha, the Briarmaven of Woe, and the Shadow Dancer leading the charge, but it's Coeddil that will carry the Wargrove of Woe into the late game with his Murder of Spites and all those AoE abilities. And he has some transformations of Catan too, so additional single entity monster summoning might play a large factor here. God, he's a beast. That melee attack value is monstrous. Up over, it's 86 right now. The defense isn't great, but that weapon strength, everything else about him is insane, and the Mortis Engine effect, draining the life of all these undead pirates, and they're gone. Crumbled out almost immediately after he made contact. But more pistol summons, and though they won't be amazing at killing a heavily armored monster, they can shoot everything else, and more importantly, they're just putting bodies on the field in between Coeddil and his target, which are the two Necrofex Colossus, and I don't think either, well, certainly not Noctilus doesn't want to fight him. We got Shadow Dancer has the Clan Eshin ability. That's Snicketch's ability. One of her dances, I'm sure. Some wave clear. The GALLOWS Giant gonna take the fall here and go in so that Noctilus doesn't have to, while he sits back and shoots with his four-armed rotary cannon. Well, or four-barreled rotary cannon. The GALLOWS Giant will wade in, and Coeddil's taking a lot of damage here. He was pretty healthy a minute or so ago, and now he's looking a lot less so. But Zoats are full HP. They're charging in, and if they get a full surround off on the GALLOWS Giant, it might not be around for very long. Invocation of Nehek going his way. Nice heal of about 1250. And the Morghuls that are still alive, haunting in the rear and slicing up some of these malevolent Dryad bows. By the way, Scurvy Dogs have been held in reserve for extreme late game, and now they will make their mark. Barking and howling their way out of the woods, straight into an ambush, into those Dryads, and making sure they cannot fire. That's a pretty big deal, because they have plenty of ammunition left, and that might be enough to severely hurt the Necrofex Colossus that still remain. The Zoats are down to around half HP. Pistol summons on the flank, really messing them up. And, I mean, this is one of the great things about the Vampire Coast. The ability to just throw body after body, keep summoning stuff, and present wave after wave of fodder. While your most important troops are dealing all that damage from range, it can be really hard to cut through, and the Wood Elves are feeling that hardcore right now. Zoats just torn apart, torn asunder in the crossfire. They had nowhere to go. They're dead, and I don't think they'll return. At least not if a Scurvy Dog has anything to say about it. But the Wargrove of Woe still has mobility. The Great Hawks finally into that last wave where the Necrofex Colossus and the Queen Bess await. Another Race Storm raining down from the heavens. The Wargrove is into the cookie jar, but the question is, can they burst through all that HP and get through the Invocation of Nehek? Noctilus has not cast that much this game. He's done 4 summons and an Invocation of Nehek, but he should still have some Winds of Magic. And meanwhile, Scurvy Dogs and Morghuls pairing up to make sure these Dryads never fire those bows again. And they will run them over. Now we have the Duel of the Titans, the Clash of Monsters. GALLOWS Giant dealing flaming damage against Drycha the Briarmaven and Coeddil. And I think these point-blank shots from Noctilus are changing it. Yeah, even though Coeddil is unbreakable, which I forgot to mention, it's one of the things that makes him so powerful. He'll fight to the end. He doesn't have the HP to survive this. The fire damage from the GALLOWS Giant has been even more impactful than I expected, and that's it. The Wargrove of Woe has shattered, and Coeddil burninated. That's the game. Crazy showing from the GALLOWS Giant, which is weird because almost every time you see that, you bring it for the terror, and you bring it for the wave clear. The fact that it has that flamethrower on its right arm, I mean, it can blast through hordes of chaff extremely effectively. But here it was used as a duelist and actually out-dueled Coeddil when the chips were down. Great showing from both Necrofexes and from the Queen Bess that got 1500 damage value, which sounds low, and it is, but it was shooting into Dryads, and that's all it could shoot at. So it definitely did its job. 300 kills on quote-unquote chaff, but scary chaff that will beat up the majority of the Vampire Coast roster. Your pistols, your zombie fodder, your Scurvy Dogs, your bombers, everything like that is going to die to these Dryads. So the fact that it was able to kill that many of them, really good value, even if the damage didn't necessarily reflect that. Yeah, GALLOWS Giant got 5,000 damage value too. Just insane. Only 60 kills, which is really low for that kind of Necrofex Colossus, but, I mean, the dueling prowess from it was very surprising. I was shocked to see what it did to Coeddil there, and Coeddil didn't have a bad game. It's not like he was terrible at all. 2,500 damage value. He paid for himself easily, and he was the only reason they were able to cut through all that fodder so efficiently in the mid to late game. When he was in that death ball with Drycha, when he gets that Murder of Spites rolling, that Mortis Engine effect, drains zombies' HP super fast, you push through, you get into the rear. Zach did pretty much everything right there, except for the fact that all his archers were blown up by Morghuls and by the Queen Pest, and I think that was the difference in the game. If he has some archers in the late game there not being hounded, I think he has a really good chance to win it. GG.